And we are recording episode 842 with Dr. Francis Boyle, and we're discussing your book, Resisting Medical Tyranny. Dr. Boyle, please introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Francis Boyle. I'm professor of law at the University of Illinois College of Law. And for our conversation here today, the most important fact is that I called for and drafted the United States domestic implementing legislation for the Biological Weapons Convention, known as the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989, that was passed unanimously by both houses of the United States Congress and signed into law by President George Bush Sr. with the approval of the United States Department of Justice.
So, in your book, which is fantastic, by the way, and the Frankenshots, I love your assertion because there's really no punches pulled. It's that this is the continuation of the Nazi ideology to remove the quote unquote useless eaters. It's based it's a race-based genocide, and we've spent over $100 billion on these bioweapons and vaccines since 9/11, which adjusted for inflation, we only spent 40 billion on the Manhattan Project. How is it going to pan out? Because obviously they're the most dangerous vaccines in history. When you look at the VAERS data, the censorship is absurd. That's why I was kicked off YouTube for interviewing Dr. Malone and Dr. McCullough. How do you see this continuing to pan out?
Well, Tommy, that's why I wrote my book, that I wanted to give the common, ordinary people of the United States of America and the world ammunition to fight back at what is being done here, this global depopulation agenda being pursued by these government elites, these scientific elites, these medical elites, health authority elites, against all the rest of it. And I wrote this book in common, ordinary language. There's no legal mumbo jumbo in there, rigmarole or whatever, so that everyone can read it and understand it and act on it. Because if we don't fight back, we are going to be depopulated. That's right. And we see here this Nazi ideology at work. I documented that quite extensively. These Frankenshots violate the Nuremberg Code on Medical Experimentation that the United States developed at Nuremberg in the Nuremberg prosecution of the Nazi doctors and scientists, some of whom were involved in biological warfare programs for the Nazis. And that's where this code came from. And every doctor, scientist, healthcare worker, government official pushing these COVID Frankenshots on innocent people know full well they are violating the Nuremberg Code on Medical Experimentation. This is a violation of international criminal law. These are Nazi crimes. And in addition, as I also pointed out in my book, I wanted to cite the Nuremberg Charter itself. This was the idea of President Franklin Roosevelt to give the Nazi war criminals a trial as opposed to just taking them out and shoot them. So this was our idea. And this is from the Nuremberg Charter in 1945 that we imposed on the major Nazi leaders. There were three crimes: crimes against peace, war crimes, which are not relevant here, but crimes against humanity is relevant. And let me quote for you, this is straight from the Nuremberg Charter. Quote, crimes against humanity, namely murder, extermination, and other inhumane acts committed against any civilian population, murder, extermination, and other inhumane acts committed against any civilian population. Now, that language, that crime was put in there specifically for the purpose to allow for the prosecution of Nazi leaders for the persecution of German Jews, their own people. The persecution of the German Jews, the extermination of German Jews, this would not be a war crime. This was their own people. And so that was put in there to deal precisely with governments pursuing murder, extermination, and other humane acts against their own people. That's exactly what we're seeing today here, Tommy, in the United States of America, certainly by our own public health officials. I mean, notice today they're going to improve these Frankenshots for kids under 5 years old. You know, this is Dr. Mengele at Auschwitz behavior and experimenting on children there at Auschwitz. That's how serious it is. And then in addition, the Rome statute for the International Criminal Court follows the Nuremberg definition of a crime against humanity and provides murder, extermination, torture, other inhumane acts of a similar character, intentionally causing great suffering or serious injury to body or to mental or physical health. So I tried to make in my book the case that we're seeing here a resurgence in Nazi mentality, Nazi philosophy, useless eaters, and Nazi practices and Nazi crimes by our own government officials against the American people. And I'm trying to be nonpartisan here. It started with Trump. It's continued and compounded with Biden when Biden adopted all these Frankenshot mandates to, clearly get everyone severely disabled. Now, I have litigated the Nuremberg Code on medical experimentation with respect to the Gulf War sickness. I came to the defense pro bono publico of Captain Dr. Yolanda Hewitt-Vaughn, who refused to give the Gulf War Frankenshots for those biological warfare weapons, anthrax and botulinum, because they violated the Nuremberg Code on medical experimentation, as well as the Helsinki Declaration and her ethical obligation as a doctor to do no harm. Now, I'm not going to go through the subsequent course that court-martial here. They court-martialed her for desertion. She did not desert at where she was AWOL. But when all this was over, I was able to get her. She was facing 5 years. I got her out of Leavenworth after 8 months and adopted a prisoner of conscience by Amnesty International, which shows you who was right and who was wrong there. But it turns out that this was, at the time we started to oppose this, I was involved February. She objected, I believe, of 1991. She objected in December of 1990 when she went AWOL. We did not realize that this would turn into the Gulf War sickness. I argued it. You can read the arguments I made in her court-martial, my book, Destroying World Order. What happened eventually, out of 500,000 US troops inoculated, 11,000 were murdered, and 20%, 100,000 were disabled, 20%. And those were healthy young men and women in our armed forces. So that is a floor for what we are seeing here, not a ceiling. We are facing a humanitarian genocidal catastrophe if we don't stop this now, based on my experience having dealt with this before. And indeed, I still hear from Gulf War veterans today asking me advice about what they can do still suffering from Gulf War sickness. Well, this is going to be Gulf War sickness on steroids. And it's going to be worse if we don't stop it now. So again, that's why I wrote the book, simply, Tommy, to sum up the first 2 years of my opposition to what was going on here.
And as a triple alumnus of Harvard, and then you went to the same program as Henry Kissinger, you've been in the belly of the beast. You know what it is. You discussed how Harvard is to design leaders for the world, and how a lot of it is psychopathic in nature. Or those are not your words; those are mine. But you also talked about how this is different from 1945 or 1933 to 1945, and that the Holocaust is global. There's not a contained country of evil men, and there are not specific camps where they're going in train cars. It is receiving the shots in your local community. It is killing them in their home, in your home, and there is no opposing party. Whereas you have the Nazis, and then you have, I don't know, the United Kingdom, the United States, the Allied powers. You don't have that here. You have a total coalescence of Nazi ideology. There is no opposing voices except for the ones like yourselves, which are then promptly censored as the word went out to never interview you regarding bioterrorism again. How can it, and I know you discussed it in your book about going to states, how can it effectively be fought? Or is it just going to take, unfortunately, is it going to run its due course? And are people only going to believe it once they see it? Because again, as you mentioned, the local Germans didn't believe what was going on in the death camps till Eisenhower brought him in there and kind of like taking a dog and putting its face in its own shit. You look at what you did, or look at what you let happen. Is that what it's going to take?
Well, let me deal with your first point. Yes, I deliberately went through the exact PhD program that produced Henry Kissinger before me, the Harvard Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, Department of Government, and specializing in international relations, just like Kissinger. When I was an associate at Harvard Center for International Affairs, they gave me Kissinger's old office, right? There, but for the grace of God go I. And you're right, this is a psychopathic mentality we are dealing here. Kissinger is a consummate Machiavellian. He does not have one principled bone in his body, despite all these attempts of revisionism by Niall Ferguson and the others. Furthermore, Kissinger was the one who recruited Klaus Schwab to set up the World Economic Forum.
Yep.
And the Great Reset. Schwab was a student of his. The program I went through at Harvard produces future professors of political science. Schwab, my understanding, went to the Kennedy School at Harvard, which produces future U.S. imperial apparatchik, spear carriers, and bootlickers. But that's where he came into contact, and he was recruited to run the World Economic Forum, and with their global reset that is going on right now. Now, of course, Kissinger, is not an independent actor here. He had been on the payroll of the Rockefeller family, David Rockefeller, from quite some time before. He had been denied tenure at Harvard and went to work for the Council for Foreign Relations and got on the Rockefeller family payroll. And we know the Rockefellers believed in eugenics and the Rockefeller Institute and all the rest of this stuff. Kissinger issued that infamous national security directive for Nixon, that population reduction is among the national security goals of the United States of America. I haven't seen that it's ever been revoked. So again, yes, this is what is going on. Now, you mentioned the Jews here. What I have worked with an Israeli human rights firm at their request, suing China over COVID-19 in the Israeli courts. So I've paid a lot of attention what's going on in Israel. And it's astounding because what happened is Pfizer BioNTech is using the Jews in Israel as their guinea pigs to test out the Frankenshots. Think about that for a minute. They are. It's sort of the Nazi Holocaust all over again against Jews there in Israel. And they admit it. They have an exclusive license to test out all their Frankenshots on Jews in Israel to see what happens. And so it's a very unfortunate situation, which is why I've agreed to work on that case. And they're going to be filing another case against these drug companies like Pfizer BioNTech. I've agreed to work on that too. So they're literally, Israeli Jews are being used as guinea pigs by Pfizer BioNTech. There's no other word for it, because these never have been tested out properly on human beings. So they got an exclusive license to test it out on Jews in Israel. So just trying to put this into historical perspective. So we have to fight back. Now, if you hit the internet, I think, right from the very beginning of this COVID pandemic, I said quite clearly that COVID-19 is an offensive biological warfare weapon that had leaked out with gain-of-function properties that had leaked out of the Wuhan BSL-4, which is China's Fort Detrick. We have to understand that. That's China's Fort Detrick. And we have historically no evidence of any type of safe and effective vaccine for an offensive biological warfare weapon, let alone one with gain-of-function properties. There's no evidence. The one evidence we did have was what I was involved in defending Captain Dr. Yolanda Hewitt-Vaughn, the anthrax shots, Frankenshots, and the botulinum Frankenshots. And as I said, they produced the Gulf War sickness. Out of 500,000 troops inoculated, 100,000 disabled, and 11,000 murdered. So it seemed to me, right from the beginning, we were facing a catastrophe here. And I also, have worked against these, what I call Frankenshots, from the beginning as well.
Is there a dormant nature to the Frankenshots? Because although there's 26,000 deaths on VAERS, and you could probably multiply that by 100, right? That'd be 2.6 million. That's still a drop in the bucket compared to the 7 billion people on the planet. Are there future, not just boosters, are there future vaccines planned? Are there future offensive bioweapons planned? I mean, right now we're seeing kind of monkeypox and Congo Crimean hemorrhagic fever make the rounds in the news. Or is it more of a is it more of a passive depopulation where you're not outright killing people so much as making them infertile, making their children infertile?
Well, we there are different statistics about how many have been murdered by the Frankenshots and how many have been disabled. If you look at the European Health Agency, they're substantially more than reported by VAERS. VAERS, basically, you have to multiply by 100 to get what might be the appropriate figures. It's hard to say. The monkeypox, my assessment of the monkeypox, again, it is an offensive biological warfare weapon with gain-of-function properties. We don't know exactly how dangerous it is, but it is highly infectious. If you just see how quickly it took off, how quickly it spread, that clearly indicates gain-of-function properties. Finally, the CDC admitted it's aerosolized, it's aerosol. Gain of function can then go 8 to 9 feet. It's not just touching or anything like that. I believe it was released deliberately because the Biden administration, the CDC, were trying to ram through these World Health Assembly regulations that would give the WHO literally totalitarian powers when it came to healthcare and health treatment over all governments and people in the world, with the ability to override doctors' best medical treatment for their patients. And using the monkeypox to scaremonger the World Health Assembly to adopt the regulations. Fortunately, that failed, but they're not off the agenda yet. As of August 1, there is going to be negotiated a treaty, not just regulations, but a treaty to deal with pandemics that would give the WHO this medical tyranny to override national governments, national courts, and even doctors. Now, the problem with the WHO, first, we know for a fact that the WHO was a sponsoring institution for the Wuhan BSL-4, which is China's Fort Detrick. Now, think about that, Tommy. If the WHO was a sponsoring institution for Fort Detrick itself, we would know the game is over, right? For the WHO, we would know the problem is working hand in glove with Fort Detrick. Well, the WHO is working hand in glove with China's Fort Detrick. That's what's going on here. That's why the WHO lied and covered up about the dangers of this pandemic from the get-go. You can't believe anything the WHO is telling you, and you certainly can't give the WHO any more powers than it already has. It'd be existentially dangerous to human rights. Plus, those of us who work in this area know full well, the WHO is a front organization for Bill Gates, the drug industry, pharmaceutical industry, the biowarfare industry. So, of course, this is an attempt to blue wash through the WHO, which is a UN organization, totalitarian dictatorial powers. So we have to oppose any WHO treaty that will be on the line come August 1 to give the WHO any more powers than it already has. This is the next stage. And yes, Tommy, you are constantly seeing these Nazi life scientists, so-called life scientists, I call them death scientists, medical doctors saying, well, there's another pandemic coming. That's right. They know it's coming. It's coming right out of their own biological warfare laboratories. I said this as far back publicly, 2009, in a award-winning documentary, Anthrax War, by Cohn and Nadler, which you can find online, dealing with the existential dangers presented by these BSL-3s and BSL-4s, biosafety level 3 and 4 labs, where if you look at them, they're involved in every type of hideous Nazi biological warfare, dirty work you can possibly imagine, for which there is no legitimate scientific or medical justification whatsoever. And at that time, and in that documentary, I served as consultant to it, but at the end of it, I say, this is a catastrophe waiting to happen. That was 2009. Well, it happened in 2019, 10 years later. And then also I wrote if you look at the introduction to my book, 13,000 Death Scientists Hard at Work, I wrote there in 2015, I said, this is a biocatastrophe waiting to happen. And I singled out the University of North Carolina. It was right in there, one of the institutions involved in this. This was well known quite some time. Again, for experts in the field who have been following this, I've been, what got me involved here Tommy, was the Reagan administration and its neoconservatives decided to abuse DNA genetic engineering for the purpose of developing new and more dangerous offensive biological warfare weapons. And that is why in 1985, at a briefing on this on Capitol Hill for the Council for Responsible Genetics, I called for the domestic implementing legislation, making all this a crime, and specifically by reference also including DNA genetic engineering. So there was no loophole there. And I provided life imprisonment for this. Unfortunately, that was not enough to deter these dirty life scientists and doctors who, were lured by the money and the power and the ego. What can I say? This Nazi mentality to control and dominate other human beings.
I think you said it best is when the mind comes to grips with it, how could they do this? Why would they want this? There's no point in questioning the ruthless pursuit of power because it's insanity. There is no why did Hitler why did Hitler do what he did? Why did Stalin do what he did? There's no point in trying to project your own, I guess, human framework onto the insanity of what they're doing because there is nothing behind it. It's total depravity, it's total psychopathy, and it's total power at all costs.
You're right, Tommy. Indeed, the great German Jewish sociologist Hannah Arendt wrote about this in her book, Origins of Totalitarianism, if you read it. And in this book, Arendt pointed out that it was total insanity for Hitler to be pursuing his policy of extermination of the Jews when he was fighting a two-front war at that time. And the massive amounts of railway equipment, troops, money, and everything else, it was total insanity. Yeah. Now, this was made by Hannah Arendt, a German Jewish refugee, came here, taught at the University of Chicago, but left there just before I came, and they had us read all her books. She just pointed out it was total insanity. So, from a rational perspective, for most common, ordinary, everyday people, it's hard to explain. But if you go to Harvard for 7 years, like I did, and get 3 different degrees there, you can see exactly how the brainwashing works. Yes. I was there for 7 years. I got 3 degrees. I spent 2 years teaching Harvard undergrads. I was an associate for Center for International Affairs, 2 years. Just like Kissinger, they gave me Kissinger's old office at Harvard Center for International Affairs. So you can see exactly how this type of power-hungry, power-mongering brainwashing works. Yes, I've seen it myself.
So the Nazi ideology is alive and well, and not only in the backwoods of deep South Georgia, but also in the highest echelons of the innermost sanctums of military, political, and financial power on the planet.
Yes, of course. Harvard, Harvard trains the brains of the American empire. Mm-hmm. That's why it's there, right? And they brainwash. And I'm not, criticizing. I know many young people go to Harvard to try to make the world a better place, but after years of brainwashing in this power hunger, power mongering mentality, they come out on the other side, or they get convinced that, well, if you want to make the world a better place, you have to become, a psychotic monster, like Kissinger.
I know I said I'd only keep you for 30 minutes, so I will let you go. I would love to keep talking to you, but I will let you go. Your book is terrifying. Again, there's no sugarcoating. There's no makeup on it. It's Nazi death scientists. The Fourth Reich is alive and well. It's global, and it is here to depopulate the useless eaters. It is based on an Aryan superiority mindset and there is nothing they will do, or there's nothing that they won't do in order to seize total and absolute control over the future of man.
As I see it, yes, these elites are going for broke, Tommy. This is it, and we have to fight back, right?
Well,
Humanity has to fight back, which is why I wrote the book, to try to provide the information, ammunition necessary for regular people to fight back, right?
they have to go for broke, right? I mean, they've already crossed the Rubicon. You've started. Once you start the death camps, you have to, right then, at the Nazis start digging up bodies and grinding up the bones. I mean, once you start, you have to go for it. The crime's done. Once you've broken the first case and taken a Rolex, you're already going to jail. You got to rob the whole store. It's done.
You're right. Crossing the Rubicon, I think, Tommy, is a good historical analogy to what's facing us. Yes.
Well, that was a terrifying 30 minutes. Dr. Boyle, thank you so much for coming on. I would love to have you on again. I would love to pick your brain more. I've interviewed Dr. Albeck of Soviet Union's biopreparat. I've interviewed Dr. Hadfield, Dr. Nass. I think
Well, Dr. Nass and I are good friends, and we've worked together for many years against biological warfare and weapons. So I have great professional respect for her and her opinion. Yes.
She's a total sweetheart. I love her. And yeah, I mean, we didn't even touch on Amerithrax and how that is a bioweapon that is still
Well, I was the one who
stockpiled.
blew the whistle on that, Tommy.
Yeah.
As I point out in the book, that,
Yeah.
that it was clear to me at the end of October that this was super weapons grade anthrax that had come out of a U.S. biological warfare weapons program and laboratory. And I gave interviews to that effect, including on the BBC. So I went public on that, I believe it was November 1, 2001, at a conference for the Council for Responsible Genetics being held at Harvard Divinity School, and went public on that. And of course, what I said was true, and yet I was an order that was given that never again was I ever to be interviewed by any Western mainstream news media source on biological warfare, biological weapons. But yes, that's just like the monkeypox, that was done deliberately to ram through the USA Patriot Act that was stalled in the United States Senate, and they did it. And the monkeypox is the same modus operandi, trying to scaremonger people into giving the WHO these totalitarian powers, just like the USA Patriot Act gave the United States government totalitarian powers, basically setting up a police state that we live in today.
Is there any silver lining you can give me? Is there any optimistic future to look towards?
My book.
Of course.
That's
course.
why I wrote it.
Yes.
That, if you want to fight back,
you got to go to the state
it's all
level.
in the book.
Yeah.
There it is. At least, obviously the book, the cutoff date was January 24, so it doesn't really take into account developments since then. But the book is, as I see it, the silver lining. That's why I wrote it, to give people hope, to give people something to do, to give people ammunition to fight back against these elites. Yes.
The transcripts in there of your interviews with Alex Jones. I got to meet Alex Jones over New Year's Eve with Dr. McCullough. I was laughing while reading your book because the transcripts are exactly how he sounds. Cut it off, doctor, to break. Now we're going to break. I'll stop interrupting you. And then he interrupts you 5 seconds later. I thought it was hilarious. But
he's
I'm not putting
people have to make money, and
I'm not. Oh no, I'm not. No, I don't say this in any form of critique. I don't say it at all. He's the one that's breaking these stories. He's the one that hosts people that talk about this stuff before it's while it's still considered conspiracy, long before it's taken into mainstream. I'm not criticizing him at all. I just thought, on the surface, it was kind of funny. It reminded me of that.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I've said, I think, everything I have to say, and I greatly appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say this. And hopefully you can get this interview around the internet, because as I told you, I'm completely blacklisted, blackballed, and censored in all mainstream news media. So
Well, hey,
there you go.
you're in good company. I've been permanently banned from YouTube since last August. So if you're not banned, something's wrong. So
Well,
Doc-
that's correct.
Dr.
Okay.
Dr. Boyle, thank you so much, sir. And I will put the link to the description, or excuse me, the link to the book in the description. Everybody go check it out. And just give me